All right, guys. Well, we had a little technical problem, and so I'm going to be explaining some of the stem and the leaves to you guys as I finish up this painting. So um, I decided that the shadows were were not, I don't know, dark enough in certain areas, and so I wanted to darken them. Okay, on the stem, I used yellow, a bright green, and a dark green, a little bit of blue, and even a little bit of black. On the stem part itself, I used the dark green and the blue to make this dark teal, and I painted it in a downward motion. Then I took a little bit of the black and I created the shadow on top. And these little thin lines, the little striations that are in the shadow. Now this little pod right here is white on this side, and it's kind of lighter because the light, the way the light's coming in. And it has striations itself. So I did between the white blending into that medium, created this lighter color, and then the medium is on this side, and then I went a little bit lighter, this middle color. I went a little bit lighter on that other side. And that whole pod is going to show up more when we get our background. Now, this curved part right here, this one that hangs down and this one that hangs down, all I have on it is a really, really pale green that I made just with white and the lime green. And I put that in, and this one has a cast shadow on it from this particular leaf. Now, this leaf comes out and it kind of curls back on itself. So this is the curled part that's a lighter color, and then this is the green part. This leaf right here is curving up around the flower like that. So this part will be in shadow, and this part is in the light. Now, these two leaves over here I have not finished, and they are on the shadow side of the flower itself. And so there's not a whole lot of detail into them, except there is a really dark line here where this leaf is casting a shadow on this one, but this leaf is darker because it's right next to the petals on the or sepals or whatever they're called around the flower. And so I wanted to finish those up, and then we're going to get started on the rosebud, do a little bit more shadowing with this brighter red, which really needs to be more prevalent in other areas of the flower, and the little bud. So we're going to do the bud and the deepening of the colors and the background, and we'll be finished with this piece. So welcome to day 2 of the flower. And if you want to see, how this is going to just like really stand out and stuff, you can always paint your background first. You just have to make sure that it's really good and dry before you go back in and add any other colors, or you don't want to set your hand into it or anything else. So I'm sorry that this part did not get the filming. But these, once again, this is ultramarine blue, and then this was just the dark green and the lime green that I had from class. This is just bright green. If you don't have these, you have any green, you darken it by adding blue to it. To brighten it, you add yellow, or you can add white if you want like a minty kind of color. Look at your reference photo. And I did a quick this is just marker in order to do these pieces. I always do like a little quick reference photo form just for my benefit. And so I'm going to be working off of it since the phone died and then the iPad died. So here we go. Now I'm just getting a little bit of this alizarin crimson on one side of my brush. And I'm put it on the wrong side. I turned it in my hand. That's okay. And I'm going to glaze some alizarin crimson over this other color that I had marked it down. It's alizarin crimson with white, but it's just so pale. These particular flowers are kind of brighter, so you get the brighter colors in And I like that much better. So this little guy is coming up out of shadow. So there's going to be a little shadow on him here. Not much of him is, this particular petal is in the highlight at all, so you could really kind of just do it super dark if you wanted to. So we're going to go up into each one of these, and I'm going to a smaller brush because this is a smaller painting. Get a little bit of red just on one side. Blend that down. That way you can follow the shapes and brighten up your flower. Clean off your brush and soften it out. That particular part of that flower is definitely in the light. I'm going to put a little white with it, soften that out. And we're going to come back and redo the darkest part of that. Whoops. Just a touch of red. I wanted to put those blues in first so that it just really darkens this red, makes it nice and rich. And the brush keeps trying to separate on me. Actually this side. Okay. This one goes here. Super, super soft strokes. That means you're not pushing very hard with the brush at all. You're just kind of gliding across the surface of the painting, and this whole area is in shadow. We're going to fill that in. As this petal is casting that shadow, I like to go back and punch up the color when it's starting to look dull. Nobody wants a dull painting. So, and we just keep building this up. Just follow your lines. However you're comfortable doing that. If you need a round brush or a small detail brush, then get one. That's not a problem. There is a highlight right along here and right along here. Blend that out. Blend, blend, blend. This little poor guy here in the middle. Let's add a little white on the brush. Is definitely looking sickly. So we're going to put that red on him as well. Everywhere you see the shadowy parts, I'm putting it on top. Oops, got it in the whole brush. Just on one side. If you have an angle brush, that'll even help you more. So okay. Little bit smaller brush going into these little areas. Tiny around this little tip, down alongside. Running out of paint. This little blunt cut off area, I think I'm going to just bring that up and make it white. I think it needs to be higher. I don't know. I just don't like the blunt cut off. It's like, so I'm actually just going to reshape my petal a little bit. Whoops. And soften that in there. I'm going to bring it over into the front part. This little line doesn't need to be there either. Maybe just the pink comes up around. Okay, here is another branch. So you get to see this branch coming in since you didn't get to see the other one. And we're going to go back to the green palette. I'm going to take a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the dark green and make me a pretty teal color. Make sure it's dark enough and thick enough. And this I don't know what you call that little pod or whatever that's on the it goes right up behind it. Let's get a round brush. This is so used to using squares and filberts that these tiny little paintings are a little difficult. Always let your brush follow the line you're trying to create, so that it'll create a smooth line for you. So if it's getting jaggy, then just change that up. Change the direction. You know, turn your board around. Now there's also this little tiny branch, and I'm going to mix a little more in order to do that little tiny branch. And it too goes behind and you don't want it to go in just one direction. It is a branch after all, so we're going to go over, up, and back into that space. Just running out of paint. And I put just a touch of black into that. And that's way too watery. Try again. There we go. And I'm putting it on the bottom side of the branch here, in the same way that you would make those little striations in the top one. Little thin lines. And make a little thin shadow side to this little branch. If it doesn't go real smooth, you're going to do the background anyway. So we can fix that then, or you can just take back a tad bit of water and your brush and touch that end, and it'll smooth out all these little bumps. But I don't want to smooth that one out too much because this really shouldn't be that large. So, but I can smooth this one out. Okay. The sepals are a medium green, so we're going to take a little bit of light, a bunch of dark, and possibly a touch of blue. So I think that's going to make it a little deeper. And we're going to paint in that. Wow, these are so tiny. Nope, too big a brush. So we're painting everything with this little teeny tiny brush. It's not even a very good brush. It's kind of fuzzy on the end. Now this sepal's on the other side of this flower bud, and so it's in shadow, and I'm gonna not use that watery stuff, so I'm gonna make me a dark green just by putting a touch of black with the dark green. And there is a cast shadow of the bud onto this leaf right here, and there's one on each one. So we're just going to go ahead and put the leaf color in, which we should have made more. Really? Okay, sorry about that. We will just color all of these in. Take that tealy color, the blue and the dark green, and put the shadows of the bud onto these little sepals. And this one is over here. Ran out of color. It isn't as dark, but there is white in between this petal, this leaf, and this leaf. So when we do the background, I'll go up inside of there a little bit to get that down. Then we're going to paint the entire bud. Oops. With the bright red and pink color combination. See if that works a little better for us. The bud is so much darker than the flower, and the flower gets lighter and lighter before it dies off of the tree itself. And the tree buds and is so pretty with just all these flowers, and there's no greenery at all except right here next to the flower itself. And then once the tree starts blooming, the leaf parts, it just looks so much prettier because there's all this green with these tufts of red sticking out everywhere. Looks very, I don't know, Christmassy kind of. It's pretty. I'm going to get a little bit of blue, and I'm going to work it onto one side of my brush, and I'm going to come down on the shadow side. It's going to make this gorgeous purple. Not enough. Need more. See if I can do that. Whoops. And this bud, you can only see two of the petals, two outermost petals, and one is following right inside here, like that. So you get your brush to just have paint on one side, and it does a blend for you because the red is still wet, obviously. And then there's a highlight right in this area. So we're literally just going to take a touch of white and blend it into the tip of our brush. And we're going to put that highlight in and then soften it out. The day is coming to a close, so there's not a lot of light coming in my window, so I'm getting a glare. I have to pick it up a little bit every once in a while just to see that. Now, if you get a color out here and you want to, you know, like you don't want a bright color there in the background that's going to cover a dark color, just use your brush damp. Barely damp. It's not wet at all. And you just push that color back to where you want it, and it gets rid of those little fuzzy lines. And the fuzzy lines happen because of the weave of the canvas that's stretched around this panel. It happens on canvases as well. So anytime you want to do that. All right, so we're going to start in with our background color. And I'm thinking I might just want to stay with this blue because I think it's really pretty blue. You know me, an ultramarine. And I'm going to go around each little section with an angle brush, and I'm going to fan it out into the background by just brushing the paint outward. So we're just gonna follow around each of these little sections and then stroke until you get rid of the white of the paper. And we can always go back in and darken something, but we're just going to try to do like a vignette type, or different people call them different things. Make sure your water is clean when you're doing this, because if you have dirty water and you go out of this space, it's going to leave hard lines out on your canvas. So we're just trying to blend that out onto the canvas so you can see how that's going to work. So let's just finish this out. Oops. Get rid of the greens. I don't need those. Give me a little bit of blue. Whoops. I need to always work toward the last thing that you did so that this will still be wet when you want to blend them together. Like, don't start painting over here and then come over here, that kind of stuff. And if it gets lighter and darker, I don't have a problem with that. I kind of think it adds to it to have different little effects going in your blends for your background. And then water it out. Try not to go back over an area too much, or you'll end up repainting it and repainting it. I want to touch this line just to get rid of those little bumps. Put some dark in there, blend it away. Doing a soft blend. Water it out. Having a darker background is going to make the flower stand out too. When I found this pink, I almost wanted to start over. But, yeah. It is a very pretty color. It's almost neon pink.
Looking good.
All right.
Cool. All right, I'll leave you to it.
just reached in the dirty water. Not good. Get the clean water right near next to me. There we go. Much better. It may be hard to see, but you can see like this little brown line. So, oh, us mixing all these different colors together. All right, I'm just going to fill in this tiny little bit right here in the corner, and we're going to call this one done. I hope you enjoyed learning the Aurora. This is something we haven't done this year, and so I'm not getting you guys all of your individual painting time, but I think we can still learn some new stuff from each other. All right, there we go. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you next week.